Welcome to Milestone Moments, the show where we explore the journeys that lead to success. I'm Sheila Slick, your host and founder of 5 Milestones. In every episode, we will bring you insights from the minds of entrepreneurs, leaders, and experts who will share not just their expertise, but the milestone moments that have reshaped their journeys and led to significant achievements. So if you're looking for motivation, you're in the right place. Subscribe now and discover the milestones that mark the path to success. Welcome to another episode of Milestone Moments in Business and Leadership. I'm Sheila Slick, your host. And today, my special guest is Dan Nicholson, a serial entrepreneur, founder of Nth Degree CPA, an accounting and financial consulting firm. Dan is also author of Rigging the Game, How to Achieve Financial Certainty, Navigate Risk, and Make Money on Your Own Terms, deemed a bestseller by USA Today and the Wall Street Journal. Dan has been named a top 40 under 40 accountant globally 4 times and has created and run multiple small businesses, including Certainty U and Certainty News, a platform that's syndicated to over 1 billion monthly users. Dan also hosts the Rigging Game podcast and is a consulting producer for PBS Opportunity Knocks. Welcome to the podcast, Dan.
Super excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
I'd love to start by asking you, was there a milestone moment, a catalyst that led you down this career path?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. So growing up, I was always that kind of cliche kid scheming on business ideas, mostly bad business ideas. But if you can imagine that kind of entrepreneurial kid with idea after idea. And so I went off to college. At the time, I was planning on being a marketing major. Hard for people to believe when they hear I'm a CPA and done all this finance stuff, that it's like marketing and accounting folks are often like the polar opposites. So down this marketing path, and first person in my family to go to college. I'm living at home. I'm commuting in and borrowing a bunch of money to pay for tuition. And I get this email from business school sort of mentee that was assigned to me. And they sent it out to everyone that UPS, United Parcel Service, the shipping company, had these scholarship opportunities, and they were having this career fair on a Saturday. Listed out all these business positions that were open. One of them was marketing. So I see the scholarship money that they're proposing. It's like, I could really use this. I'm working a 20, 25-hour a week job in addition to being a student, and I could really use this scholarship money, and I want to get my foot in the door in a marketing position. So I print everything off. I have my resume. I've got a suit on. I go to this hub where they handle all the parcels and everything in the city nearby. Show up. I'm the only person in a suit. It's a group of other folks in jeans and T-shirts and all that. It's a room of 30-ish folks around my age. I'm 19 at the time. And they proceed to show this video about the benefits of working in the hub and being a loader and unloader and how you can get a night shift and all this sort of stuff. And so I watch it. And at the end, I kind of sheepishly raise my hand. I'm like, hey, this sounds really interesting. But these all sound like positions here in the hub, kind of manual labor type stuff, which is not at all below me, believe me. But I've got this print off here that talks about these marketing internships and stuff. I'm just like, maybe I'm in the wrong place. I'm like, okay, well, there's a booth outside with a couple guys from finance, but otherwise, like, I don't know anything about kind of what you're talking about. This is a career expo to recruit people to work inside the hub. Like, okay, cool. I go out, I talk to the finance guys. I show them the same thing, same sheet of paper. Hey, look at this marketing internship. Like, we don't know anything about that. We don't really even have a marketing department like based here in the Seattle area where I was. I proceed to talk to them for the next hour and show them the resume, all of that. And they go, we actually have this open position for a part-time finance supervisor, and we think you might be a good fit. We're going to pass your resume off to our regional controller. And fast forward a month, somehow in 19, I get this job as a finance supervisor, managing 20 to 25 people as part of the finance department, still inside the hub, part of this department called Revenue Recovery, where we were auditing shippers for basically billing compliance. And it was that moment, getting this job and getting all this responsibility, that one, I proved to myself that I was capable of really doing anything that I set my mind to, but it also set me on this path to changing my major to ultimately be accounting. And everything is sort of fall from there. I ended up getting this fellowship at the board that writes all the accounting standards here in the US, sort of the most prolific fellowship you can get in my industry. And I think I got it not because I went to one of the top accounting programs. The other 5 fellows went to the top 5 accounting programs in the US. I think I got it because I already had a ton of work experience in finance that didn't seem ordinary for someone who was in their early 20s. So completely changed the whole trajectory of my career and life.
And then from there, you founded your own CPA firm.
That's right. Yep. After years of sort of struggling with and going back and forth of, okay, now I have all this accounting experience. I've got this fellowship, worked in these kind of prestigious jobs, at least on a resume. Really what I wanted to be was an entrepreneur. And so I was struggling with, how do I reconcile all of this? And again, first person in my family to go to college. My parents, we were poor to early stage of a lower level of middle class. And I've got this great resume and making more than my parents ever had with their 70-hour-a-week jobs. And I'm going like, I'm not happy. I want to be an entrepreneur. What do I do? So finally, I kind of realized that I could have the best of both worlds and start my own firm while also kind of leveraging the skills that I developed over a decade plus at that point.
Interesting. Well, so your book and your podcast are both great resources for entrepreneurs. Can you share some of your top strategies to win at business and life on our own terms?
Yeah, so the book is really my, what I call operating system, my series of principles around how to win at business on your terms with less effort and less risk. It is kind of the culmination of all the things I had to unlearn. So I just told you about all this great Fortune 500 experience at UPS and some other fellowship. Obviously went to business school, did pretty well at that. And then I'm in my own business now, realizing I have to unlearn everything that I thought I knew about business. See, what you learn at business school prepares you to work at a Fortune 500. Working at a Fortune 500 job is much different, stating the obvious, than running a small business. And what I realized after a number of years, and this is one of the kind of core lessons in my book, is that a Fortune 500 company is focused on maximizing. You have to maximize shareholder value. That is the fiduciary responsibility of the executive team. Maximize. Maximize is about having the most amount of clients, employees, market share, now, as fast as possible. Maximize. As a small business owner, though, we don't have the resources to maximize. We have to optimize. Optimize is not about having the most of everything. It's about what is the most important priority to you right now and putting all your resources towards that. Once I realized that, I started pulling at the string of all these different rules and principles I learned in business, realizing a lot of these just don't apply to small business owners because we're playing a different game. We're optimizing. What are we optimizing for? What we want, our ideal life. If there's one thing I hope that people take away from listening to this episode with me today, is that the biggest risk in life other than death is not living the life that you want. And so your business, your investments, all of that exists to serve you and living the life that you want. They're just tools. They're just assets facilitating living the life that you want. And so many of us aren't following that path. We've created a job really out of our entrepreneurial path. And now we have all these obligations because we've overextended ourselves. We've taken on too much risk. And now everything has to work in our business because if it doesn't, we're in dire straits. And so now we work for the business rather than it working for us. And that's the wrong paradigm. That's not likely the reason why you got into business to begin with.
So how do you help the entrepreneurs solve that issue? Or, like you said, optimize?
Yeah. So step one is get clear on what I call your solvable problem. Your solvable problem is your unique definition of wealth. Take that vision board that maybe you've worked on of all those things that you want, the six-pack abs, the great parent, the house, the cars, and put dollar values. How much will each of those items cost? And dates. When do you want to fund those goals by? Once you have that, now you actually have a solvable problem. We can use math to calculate how much more you need to make to fund all of those goals. I built a tool that you can do this for free at certaintyapp.com. You can calculate the resources you need. Once you know that, now you have a Google Maps for yourself to measure your progress. Most of us are driving to a destination, but we haven't set a time limit. And so we think we're getting closer, but oftentimes we're just driving in a circle or we're driving in reverse. We're getting further away from our goals. The objective is to get closer. We think more is always the answer, but the objective is to get closer to our solvable problem, our unique definition of wealth. So we need to get really clear on what we want. And now we can figure out the most efficient path with the least amount of risk rather than guessing and doing a bunch of different stuff that's unknown. So that's the first step in the process.
And then you help them map that out. Do you offer consulting? Do you have a group program?
Okay.
I know you've got the book and you've got the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I would tell folks is that there's several different, what I would call wealth types. Some of us are hustlers. Some of us are gamblers. Some of us are optimizers by nature, savers. So we have these different tendencies. And based off your tendency, I would say that dictates the risks that you face in terms of the path, the ways in which we're going to blow ourselves up, or the ways that there are assets and liabilities at the same time based off our tendencies. And what I would say is that we need to shift our mentality, at least in terms of wealth and our business, to having a net worth based focus. Net worth. All the decisions that we're making should grow our net worth. Now, I can tell you, looking at the data over the last 3 years, most of us have gone backwards. Our net worth has decreased because we've taken on a bunch of debt, things like the EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. We've taken on a bunch of debt, spent it. Our net worth is decreased. We didn't grow our business enough, but we spent all the cash. We need a net worth focus. We have a net worth focus. Then what that says is, step one, how do we recover a bunch of resources? Where are we spending in areas that aren't giving us a rate of return necessary? One of the biggest factors is tax, way overspending on taxes. Oftentimes, what I can show people is they can fund their goals on the timeline that they want if they recover things that they're already spending money on and reallocate it towards their goals. So re-engineering your expenses, recovering what you're unnecessarily paying in taxes, repositioning your financials. The most important financial statement is not the profit and loss, it's the balance sheet. That's what shows you your net worth. 80% of small business owners, if not higher, are either currently illiquid, they don't have enough cash flow to pay their short-term debts, their expenses over the next 12 months, or they're insolvent. They don't have the means to pay their debts that are more than a year out. So you got to reposition your balance sheet so that you can actually scale and grow your net worth. So just to summarize, recover your expenses that aren't giving you a sufficient rate of return. Don't unnecessarily pay in taxes, and then reposition your financials so that you're not illiquid or insolvent. That's what's going to put you in a position to actually scale your net worth and fund that solvable problem faster.
Well, those are great recommendations. And from the CPA standpoint, of course, it all comes down to the numbers. So what is your next milestone?
Yeah, so I love that question, and what I tell folks is that I am more theme focused than goal focused. So I usually will pick a theme for the year. Last year was joy. How can I do more things that give me joy? And then I kind of try to build my life around the things that I'm doing that are giving more joy. This year, my focus is on this is a term that I learned from this guy, Dr. Michael Gervais. He has a podcast called Finding Mastery. And in his recent book, he talks about the first rule of mastery. And he talks about how you can never achieve a level of mastery if you have FOPO, fear of other people's opinion. And he says the biggest pathway to FOPO is when you have a performance-based identity as opposed to a purpose-based identity. When you're performance-based, you're always focused on comparing yourself against others, which puts you right in that fear of other people's opinions stage. So this theme for me for this year, my next milestone, is becoming much more purpose-focused. I would say that's been an emphasis, but if I'm being truly honest with myself, the last 20 plus years has been all about performance. And I've spent too much time comparing myself against not just others, but this mythical level where I'm supposed to be, which I've invented in my own head, where I'm supposed to be at this stage in my life. And then, of course, it's always further away than where you are now. It's like where you're supposed to be, you keep moving the goalposts out. So even though you've exceeded your wildest dreams, you're still not to where you were supposed to be. And so my next milestone is really this theme for this year, which is to be much more in alignment with being purpose focused.
So where can my listeners learn more about you and your services and your book and your podcast?
Yeah, so probably the best place to go would be to go to riggingthegame.com. That's going to have reference to my book. It's going to have reference to the different businesses that I'm involved in. You can sign up for a newsletter that I have called Unconventional Wealth, and a bunch of other cool resources.
Before we wrap this up, and you've given so many different tips and perspectives, can you offer one tip to our listeners that they can implement right away to create asymmetric opportunities and take action?
Yeah, so creating asymmetric opportunities, just as some quick context, asymmetric, when I use that term, or asymmetric risk, it means we have significantly more upside than downside. If you study the great entrepreneurs, people who are wealthy in many different ways, whether it's financially or just spiritually, they've followed endeavors that have way more upside than downside. And for whatever reason, they're naturally attuned to identifying these opportunities. Most of us as small business owners, we are oftentimes making bets, making decisions that have way more downside, way more risk than upside. We'll bet $1,000 on Facebook ads to make $1,500. But if we aren't able to make that money back, that $1,000 might put us in a really deep, tough financial position, or $10,000 to get $15,000 back. It's not a significant enough return to be considered asymmetric, and resources are finite. So every time you tie up your money in one investment, you remove the ability for you to invest in something that would have a much higher rate of return. And when I say investment, I'm talking time, influence, energy, money, reputation. There's more than one currency. So we have to think about all the different currencies when we're making a bet and weighing, does it really have significant enough rate of return? The greatest traders in the world understand this. They eliminate all the downsides, so they're only left with upside. So go through all your expenses by vendor. Just run a report. You can do this from QuickBooks. You can run it by vendor for the last 12 months. Identify all those expenses as either, is it a core expense? Yes or no? Core means your business can't exist without it. We have to have it. Anything that you say, no, it's not core, is an investment. It's a bet you're making in something that's going to give you more time, influence, money, energy, reputation. And it better be giving you a significant return on that investment, at least the return you need to fund your solvable problem. If it is not meeting that return, then you have to ask yourself, should I cancel it? Or what would it take for me to make this investment something that is meeting my desired rate of return? And am I willing to put in that effort? That's where we're going to recover a ton of resources: time, influence, money, energy, reputation. We're going to recover all those bets that we made that aren't giving us a significant enough return. And we're going to reallocate it towards the big returns. And that's how we're going to create the home run opportunities and live the life that we want with less effort, less risk, and more options.
Well, thank you so much for that. Thank you for joining me today and being part of this episode.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
And thank you all to our listeners for tuning in to another episode of Milestone Moments in Business and Leadership.